This is the first one of my video blogs. I didn't really write down what I was going to say, so it's kind of a work in progress. I basically wanted it to be a blog for anyone who is either going through the same thing that I'm going through, or even people who are just kind of facing up to some of the challenges of being in a family with someone with cancer or someone close to them. Because I think I could have used that for 4 years. Something I've kind of just struggled through and didn't really talk about it. And if I did talk about it, I'd generally always be positive, which is obviously what you should do, but I think you lie a lot of the time about how you're feeling, and someone asks you if you're okay, you're like, yeah, everything's fine, when a lot of the time you don't really feel strong enough to explain what you're feeling. So I suppose introductions to what I went through. My mother sadly passed away last year in August, on August the 2nd. And she had a 4-year battle with cancer. This is my mum. See, that was a bit of glare from the screen. That's mum. As you can see, she's kind of the light of everyone's life with her smile. And that was taken 2 days after she had a brain tumour removed last year in the spring. And that's when the cancer had spread, and that's when things started to get even more real. She was first diagnosed August, so was it 2000 and God, what year is it? 2011. And sorry if I'm a bit distracted because I have Duchess Kitty, who always wants attention. So if I seem distracted, it's because of her. She's been a good sort of coping mechanism for everything. So yeah, she passed away last year, and we cleared out her house finally a few weeks ago. The house sale went through on Friday, and that's when stuff kind of really sunk in properly about what happened. So she was first diagnosed in 2011 with terminal lung cancer. It was a big shock because she'd always been really healthy. She was 57, but she was going to the gym every day and she ate really well, and everyone always thought that she was a lot younger than she was, and they always saw her as the most healthy person that they'd ever met. So it was pretty surreal experience, her actually getting diagnosed. She'd been poorly for a year with breathing difficulties, which they thought was just asthma, and they kept giving her an inhaler and she kept going back and she wasn't feeling well. So she'd had pleurisy, a chest infection. It took 8 months to diagnose, which is kind of what you can do without when you're that poorly. And you do think a lot of the time, what if she had got diagnosed 8 months earlier, and would things be really, really different now? And you just can't. You just get to the point where it's just really unhealthy to be thinking about what ifs, because you end up feeling really, really angry and bitter, and that's something I'm still coming to terms with. It's just getting over how unfair it all seemed. And I mean, when she got diagnosed, we didn't know how long. We had no way of knowing how long. And, you know, all they really said was that it was chemo. And I remember her, when she first got diagnosed, how scared she was. I mean, we're all scared, but it's when you actually see someone with that much fear, and looking back, I sort of think, you know, how strong she was to keep going. And it took a few weeks of sort of persevering and, you know, and remembering to give her that positivity. And you know, she was in such a good place, being surrounded by me and my sisters and some really close family and her partner. And, you know, we just kept telling her that, you know, we were there, we'd always be there, and no matter what happened, you know, it wouldn't change who she is. And it never did. It never changed her. Mum was a piano teacher, and this evening I went to a concert at the school she used to teach at, a memorial concert for her. Some of her pupils were singing and playing instruments, and, you know, there was that surreal moment when, you know, they sort of announced that me and my sisters were there, and everyone just turns around to look at you. And, you know, she was my mum, and yet she was also so many other things. You know, she wasn't just my mum, she was a teacher and an inspiration and a good friend and, you know, a girlfriend. You know, she was wife to my father for 25 years. She was something to all of us, but in essence, she was a fighter, and I am very proud. But I've also had to come to terms with just coping, really, day to day. Yeah, so as you can see, she gets kind of jealous when tension's not on her. And I haven't dealt with it in the best way. I think there is no right or wrong way to deal with loss. So I wanted this to kind of document my journey. So I suppose I'll start with the shock, mainly, which isn't just go. People sort of said I was dealing with it well, but, you know, even my sister talked about it. It was kind of like she'd gone on holiday. That's kind of how we got through it. We said that, you know, it was like she'd gone on holiday, and, you know, we were going to open the door and she was going to be there. And then days passed, weeks passed, months passed, half a year, and then you're clearing out our house, and that was another shock. It was a long, tiring process of doing that, knowing how to do that, because, you know, you see it in films, people clearing out relatives' stuff and how emotional it all is, and doesn't compare to actually what it's like. Person, you know, my mum was my world, and, you know, I lived with her for, you know, when she got diagnosed, it was my last year of university, and then I came home and I wanted to be there. And, you know, and the irony is that I looked to move out last year, because it had got to the stage where, you know, I couldn't care for her in the same way that someone else could, because I'm not a carer. And I think we both felt that something had been stolen from us in our relationship, because, you know, she was my mum, she wanted to mother me, and I found it so hard. And she couldn't, not in the way that she wanted to. you know, she wanted to be the one cooking the meals and doing all the extra tasks. She didn't like that those roles were reversed, and I found it difficult watching her deteriorate, because even though she was sick and terminally ill, she still worked every day. And it was only until the brain tumour that she couldn't anymore. You know, she couldn't drive anymore, which was a big thing for her because she'd always been so independent. You know, she couldn't drive anymore, and she, you know, I heard her in the mornings trying to get down the stairs, and she couldn't bend over to pick things up. And I just thought, you know, I was going to work every day, and I just thought, you know, I'm going to work, and she could drop her phone, and she could be in a state, and then, you know, there were so many what ifs. And I think, yeah, I think deciding to move out wasn't just my decision, it was hers. And the day I was meant to move out here was the day that she passed away. And, you know, in some ways it wasn't right, but, you know, it was some sort of weird closure, because I know I'd never walked away. You know, I wish I could have done more, and I could have done better, and that's still what ifs. And I think that's my lesson for this one, is obviously the shock, but also the shock which ties into the what ifs and the regret. And it's just such an unhealthy thinking process, because you just go round and round in circles. The only way to kind of gain acceptance and be in reality with it, you know, and you play out situations in your head and you think, if I'd done this differently, you know, I took her to hospital before she passed away, and, you know, I thought, what if I'd taken her in there a day earlier? You know, what if or a week earlier? Because she was poorly, but she was still working. She worked up until the day she was in hospital, you know. That was Mum, and, you know, I think, yeah, you drive yourself mad thinking, what if? And she was a big believer in doing your best, and I like to think I did do my best for her, even though I could have changed things. Yeah. So yeah, that's just what I'm going to say today, is stop saying what if. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. Last words of a fool. And it's my new mantra at the moment. It kind of crosses through to everything, including work, life, relationships. That's my mantra, and my doorbell just went and it really creeped me out, so that's it.